everyone, and welcome to our latest The Doctor Will See You Now consultation. It's a warm one today, and if you're watching this pretty soon after it's recorded, I hope you're enjoying the sun where you are. As ever, I always say this is a special session, a special consultation. Well, today, for two reasons. It is brilliant to welcome back an author. It's only the second time I've welcomed an author back. And this book, well, it feels like a guilty pleasure. And we're going to be discussing why. But please, before we get into that discussion, welcome back with me, Olivia Kiernan. Olivia, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, hot, like most of the UK. Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure to be back on. I just feel really privileged to kind of return to the show, to the consultation room, I should say.
It's so good to be able to, and I hope we can discuss, sort of like, it's almost 12 months since we last met, and discussed, your writing then. Here we are to discuss book 4, in the series, The Murder Box. Oh, yeah. It's like I'm still feeling.
Geek here.
Yeah, go on, show it again. Yeah, come on.
I love the cover. I'd say they've done a great job of it.
Isn't it that idea of, if you take that flight of stairs, and if you open the box,
there's no getting out till the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And now, but first of all, so book 4 in the series, yeah. Where is your main protagonist, Frankie? Yeah, Frankie Sheehan. Where is she at in her professional life before the story unfolds?
So the Murder Box opens, it's not that long after the last book closes. So I think it's a few, maybe 5 or 6 months or so. So she's still kind of in the same level in her work and feeling control, because obviously she kind of came out on top in the last one, and she's feeling comfortable. But very soon after the opening of the Murder Box, that kind of stable footing she has begins to unravel in all aspects of her life, her personal life, her work life, and obviously in the cases that she's investigating. She's not, the book opens on a missing persons case, and the Bureau are not doing very well at all in getting a foothold on it, despite the fact that the missing person is a national celebrity. So he's very well known. There's a lot of pressure. He's wealthy, nation sweetheart, but also he's the nephew of the commissioner, Donna Hegarty. Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on the Bureau, and despite them pulling out all the stops, Frankie, I guess, is failing in some respects to kind of get to grips with this case. And also at the same time, her partner Baz, who she hasn't become reliant on, but they are like kind of, I guess he's a shadow of her in some way, or an opposite of some way, and they've really begun to work well together. This kind of push-pull dynamic they have, and so he is also beginning to pull away emotionally and professionally, and it's confusing to her. So her entire kind of world it's not broken apart, but she can feel this kind of wobble underfoot. And obviously, as we know, Frankie, she likes to be in control, our Frankie. So this is not a comfortable position for her to be in. And then in comes the Murder Box, and she thinks that even though she believes it's a piece of entertainment, the murder mystery game, maybe for an evening she can get an element of control in that game, and she'll solve it. And that's not how things go.
It isn't it? And again, just to say what I thought was absolutely tremendous is the way you married together here. It's like a classic murder mystery.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so reminded of a game of Cluedo, but probably with not such high stakes at all.
We hope not.
No, no, good God. But then, you write a fabulous police procedural as well, okay, whereby, you know, you, you take us in to just the right amount of personal life of the team. So we're invested in that. But you give us in this, what seems, as you quite rightly say, sets out as something quite innocent. It seems like this will be fun. And then it's anything but. So now tell me, was it fun? And it's maybe not the right word to use with this, but I mean, was it enjoyable, over the last year to be writing this story where you do this combination?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I remember I pitched the idea in a rough form of the idea in 2018, a long time ago, well, in publishing world, a long time ago to my publishers.
Okay.
And I pitched it alongside my last book, If Looks Could Kill. And we had a debate over which one I should write first. And we thought that we'll write If Looks Could Kill first because kind of needed that percolating time, how I was going to bring this to the page. So I needed that because I felt like I hadn't quite nailed the premise yet. And I needed the time over those couple of years to really decide what I was trying to do. And so I'm quite glad. And even with the pandemic, which came in and slowed down the writing halfway through, because of homeschooling and all the other the stresses that kind of takes away from kind of creativity. Even that helped in a way. Like it really did kind of make me reach for what might seem like a bit of a, it's a bit silly to bring a murder mystery game in, but I really wanted to bring it in with that real authentic edge of that police procedural running underneath. So it didn't feel too comical, too farcical to have this murder mystery game over a kind of interwoven between this police procedural. So that was really nice, and it was lovely to kind of land it in my head of what I was trying to do and to kind of get that concept. And Frankie, to be fair, is actually helped because she's such a realistic and such a gritty, she's the opposite of that. There's nothing kind of farcical about her. So it really helped to give her that game, so that you kind of marrying that real life versus kind of fictional world together, which is what the entire themes in the novel, that's what kind of ignited my passions, was trying to bring that fictional murder mystery world into that more real setting, Dublin setting that I have in the books. So that was a lot of fun. And I kind of listened to a lot of podcasts on gaming and board games and traditional board games and the philosophy behind them and the psychology behind them. And that was really helpful as well, because I created a character then, Camille Forbes, who has the opening quote in the novel, who's an expert in games. So she's able to voice some of those more technical aspects of the game, or what the game is trying to do for the reader and for Frankie. So those elements were really fun. The only thing I remember thinking, that was slightly disappointing, was that the Pokemon Go. Do you remember when that blew up onto the scene?
Yeah.
Where people would kind of find their Pokemon figures through their phone, on a real setting. So they were going out into the real world. Yeah, so you have this kind of crossover of a game coming into interacting with the world as we know it. And so that was the only thing I thought, because this book is set before that blew up onto the scene. So I couldn't kind of bring that in. But it was that kind of idea of a fictional game being imposed upon a real setting where the players have to interact in the real world to get the result they want to get. So I think in the gaming world, they call it augmented reality, which is a reference to the digital side of things, but I've just kind of done it with a board game. So yeah,
because as well, just for viewers, that sense of, yes, the murder box arrives, but Frankie and Baz aren't playing this alone, are they? That there is an online aspect to this as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So as they this doesn't give anything away because it's very soon in the book, Frankie begins to realize the fictional victim in the game is not fictional, that it's actually in reference to a real murder victim. So obviously then they get their team, their tech team on it, and Steve, their technical person, soon works out that there's possibly up to 85 subscribers or players who may also have received a murder box, and who may also be either trying to stop anyone else from winning because they want to win, or so interfering kind of in the investigation, or they might be completely oblivious to the fact that this is real and not a fake, not kind of a fictional game. So yeah, it's kind of who's going to get there first, and of course there's a time clock as well on the game, as there would be with a lot of games. So that also was put an extra bit of pressure on our characters.
Struck me as well the idea of decisions and choice, you know, and the detective's choice. It almost seemed to heighten reality. You know, you talk about augmented reality, but the sense of the decisions that they make of will it save the game victim, which the links to the real victim, will it save that victim, or will it condemn that victim? I mean, the moral dilemma of, do we move forward with this game? If we stop, what will happen? If we make the wrong decisions, what will happen? I mean, I'm really sorry, but talk about, you know, biting nails.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing that I wanted to ask you, and it's a little bit like asking somebody for the special recipe, and there's always something missing. But your pacing, I think, is phenomenal.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you can own up to the fact of this just happens. I don't know how this just happens, or now I have to go back and think this is going on for too long. I need to trim, or I need to speed this up. How do you get to the end of a book when it, as you said, when it gets on the shelf or it's on our Kindle and it's like, oh my God, Olivia, this just runs, or this gives us a moment for. How do you do that?
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm glad that comes across in the book. And
Uh-huh.
I always love to talk about process, so I never mind being asked any questions like that. You know, that's what excites me as a writer anyway, is thinking about craft and structure. And I'm quite ruthless when it comes to the editing afterwards. I do tend to overwrite, in that there might be full chapters that I will tear out of a finished draft. And this is before I'll even have sent it to an editor. To me, it has to serve character or story, preferably both, all the time. So with the murder box, and obviously having the time clock with the game does help, because it's a natural time pressure for both the reader and the characters. So that helps to kind of build the pace. But actually, because weirdly, as I said, because of the pandemic arrived, and I was about halfway through, and I just couldn't really write very well at all in those 2 months. It really stopped me, which is not like me when it comes to writing a first draft. So normally I really like to try and push through and keep in the zone on the world of the book as much as possible. But actually, it really helped, because when I could pick up the pen again, I was coming at it. I don't know. I don't know. I could really see the mechanics. I don't know. You know the open of Game of Thrones, where all the kind of
all the cogs and
all
the
the
wheels,
towers
everything's coming. Yeah.
it was like I could see it in 3D, and it was like I can see where the game needs to come in on the whole landscape of the novel. Now, this sounds very mystical and stuff, but it was like that kind of bird's eye view of the structure the book needed to take. And I did, all the elements were the same, but I did go back into the book then and pull the game right through to the front of the novel, and I could see that where it was going to manifest, and where the beats for the game that needed to land in the book. and again, that to me is massive fun. So as a writer, that the kind of having, some writers really dread that, but to me, I like it. I really enjoy that process. It's all part of the crafting and of the book. So no, it didn't just come out exactly like that with the pacing, but it's all part of the process. At some point, you do look back and you can kind of see that. But that's the best way I could describe it. It's like that Game of Thrones
Yeah,
credits, where I could just see those elements kind of rising up from the fabric of the story. And I thought, okay, right, how am I going to grapple this? I'm going to dive in and kind of start moving some of these pieces about. So yeah, no, again, that was quite a lot of fun. Once you kind of know what you need to do, I think as a writer, everything's fun. It's when you're sitting there going, I don't know what I need to do. That's the worst part. Yeah.
but if you'll allow me to say, I mean, you know, your work is always good. All right, your work is you know you're gonna have a good read. Okay, yeah. But this, you seemed to have upped your game, if you'll pardon the pun, with this one. Did you feel that, God, this is going to sound bad as well. Did you feel like you'd gone to the next level?
I do feel like it was reaching for a concept. Just sometimes I think you can tell yourself that oh no, there's no way I can do that. I can't land that plane kind of thing. But I don't know. I think with writing, you have to sometimes be brave and just kind of go for it. And I think there were many moments in the writing of this where I had to kind of be brave and go for it with the concept. I had to make it big. I had to let it. It would have been very easy to make it all a bit quieter, the game a bit quieter in the
Yeah,
book,
yeah,
and not just have it as a normal murder investigation in the novel, and just have the murder box element as a kind of side thing. But really, I just thought, no, you have to, with each book, there's something you're striving for, and you have to kind of reach for it as much as you can. So I think with this one, I was just lucky because I had that extra little time from pitch, from the concept
yeah,
arriving, that we made the decision to make it the book 4, not book 3. And I just had that kind of time to let the idea build and grow. So by the time I sat down to write it, I felt, okay, I can bring this to the page. You just have to let it run.
now it's, you see, again, I think it's really interesting that you make that comment, because I think often, and I know it's the way of the system, and I know it's how it is, but when an author is contracted, and the publishers want you to produce, and you've got 12 months to produce a book, and but if this was from 2018,
Yeah.
And it was allowed, to ferment a little bit more, and to,
Yeah, it makes a difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know it's tricky, that balance between creativity and production.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see the result here with the murder box, and what that's meant.
Yeah, I think you just, as well, the universe just gives you, because you're looking for it. I think even when you're not aware, you're looking for things to add to the pot all the time. And with the murder box, I remember I had thought I wanted the first idea was like a kind of network of true crime and crime fans and murder mystery fans. So I knew I wanted to write a book about that and somehow have them teasing Frankie. And I could kind of see that Dublin would be kind of almost a board game element.
Yeah.
But the kind of, it was actually at Harrogate at the Crime Writing Festival, where on my first year as a debut, I was invited because it was then I pitched it was just after that, because I had a 2-book deal for my first book and the second book, and then I pitched that summer the third and fourth book. And I was invited to the author murder mystery dinner. I don't know if you've ever, and Lee Child was hosting and had written it that year. And I was so excited, because you get to host as an author a table with readers and they're just unbelievably passionate about.
Yeah.
And I just thought, God, I never get, even though I write crime fiction, I'm never right. I never work out the killer. When it comes to murder mysteries, I love them, but I just thought, oh God, these poor people, they really have the worst author leading them here, you know? And they were so passionate about murder mystery. And it's, you know, that's true right across the board. Like, how long has the kind of concept of murder mystery game and murder mystery fiction kind of ignited passions, and that desire to solve the puzzle, you know, that kind of wanting to know who's at the end of it and kind of putting the clues together. That really pushed the concept along for me, going to that author dinner, because I thought, yes, these are the same kind of motifs and tropes. And yes, people might say, oh, that's cliche, but so what? That's great. It's entertainment, it's storytelling. And I really wanted to kind of bring that into into our kind of modern detective fiction, police procedural, as much as possible. So yeah, it was actually that the author dinner in Harrogate that really kind of pushed the concept along for me a bit. So having that extra time, as you say, you end up looking out for ideas and other aspects to add to your book, which kind of deepens it a little bit. It brings a few more layers to it.
And it felt, you know, I said this before, but it really felt, it felt like for Frankie and Baz, it was almost like you think you're detectives. Yeah. You know, it was laying down the gauntlet more than, and it's probably wrong to say this, but you know, than a typical case.
Yes.
You know, the idea of trying to find out where, you know, what they were already working on that had seemed to have come to a dead end. What were they going to do? And it was almost like, so, you know, you think you're professional detectives? Try this.
Yeah.
You know, and it to me it called into question, you know, are you really who you say you are or who you believe you are? And I think for, you know, for both of these characters, even though they're very different, as you say, they take very seriously what they do. It's not like, oh, I'll go to work.
Yes.
You know, it is their very essence of what they do. And this box arrives and it's like, oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just excuse if my dog is snuffling in the background. You can have a pug, so she's just snoring. Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, it's Frankie is her, as you say, her very essence is her work. You know, it just never leaves her mind. Everything she does is motivated through her work, and Baz to some extent is the same. Maybe not to that level, but he is definitely doesn't like to be beaten, Baz. So he definitely wouldn't want to give up if there's any single chance that they could bring in who they need to bring in, which is obviously he makes some choices, which is why it's so confusing to Frankie at the beginning. You know, she thought this is not, doesn't feel like him at all, and she's very confused why he's pulling back. And yeah, the creator of the game is coming in, and you know, this network of crime fans or murder mystery fans, they're obsessed. They know everything there is to know. So when this creator comes in, they are like, well, you think you know, but I know your job. I know your next steps. I know what you likely do. And so it's a kind of game of the creator preempting the detective's next moves. And and as you mentioned previously, um, they're constantly having to judge if they take the next step and they get it wrong, what's the consequence? Because as in most games, when I was kind of researching various board games like legacy games and kind of games that have an interactive role, normally you'd have a card. Say if you have a weapon card, or if you have something, you would use it, but then you would tear it up. It has a physical result in the game. You cannot use that, and that's a kind of symbolic movement to, okay, you've used that weapon. So that in that way, I've brought those elements into the murder box, in that if they make the wrong move, they've used that move up, and there's a consequence to that. So they're not just judging putting a foot wrong on their police procedure, that, okay, if we get that wrong, we can pedal back and change direction. If they get that wrong, it could well kind of result in the disintegration of an entire section of the game, and there's consequences to that. So yeah, they're definitely, they don't get it at first, but they're definitely on the back foot with the murder box too. They're playing against someone who really knows what they're doing, or has a serious kind of vendetta enough to put this kind of passion into a game to taunt the police.
Can I ask? I mean, just moving away from the novel a little bit. Did you play board games when you were growing up? Do you still play board games now? Is it something that's that you enjoy doing?
I wouldn't call myself a gamer at all. Like, I know some people who are just, I don't know, Xbox or PlayStation or anything like that. But definitely when I was growing up, I loved Cluedo. So I just loved all that. And also I think most of my Saturday evenings when we'd gather with friends, we'd play Murder in the Dark. I don't know if you can remember that, but I've just so many memories of playing that. When you think about it, it's quite, it's quite a violent, dark game to play for kids, but and that's where you would decide who was the murderer and who was the detective, and then all the lights would go off, so everything was in the dark, and then someone would tap you on the shoulder, and you were the victim, and you keeled over, the lights would come on, whoever was the detective would come in, and then they would interrogate everyone wherever you were, either in the room or the house. Where were you when you heard the scream or whatever? And only the murderer could lie. Everyone else had to tell the absolute truth. And we loved that game. We played it all the time. And I think also just things like, my dad was a huge Columbo fan, so he constantly had Columbo on in the background. And so I think lots of that just kind of fed into my psyche and came out in some ways in this book. So yeah. But with regards to Cluedo and that, I remember, I think it was my sister who had gotten that from Santa Claus. And yeah, we absolutely loved that book, or that board game. It was brilliant. I'm very sorry if my dog is barking.
It's lovely. I like it. What is your dog called?
This Martha. She's a pug.
Martha. I think Martha actually solved it at that point. I think she was just letting me know she solved the mystery. So,
yeah.
I'm not sure who might be watching this, but if anybody is watching this who has control over things going from page to screen, please. I mean, I know Olivia would like it to, for that, but honestly, I just think this translates perfectly.
Oh, thank you. I might have a little announcement coming out tomorrow, so I can maybe give you an exclusive. So Victoria Smurfit has optioned it, her company with Keith Boak. So yeah, maybe yourself with options, they have to get to a network and that, but it's still, for me, that's massively exciting, because I have four books in, so this feels just brilliant to have some interest at all from the TV sector.
I know, because there's so much out there, but honestly, I think the layers of this story, and what would be visually possible with it.
Yeah.
Really. I just think it yeah.
It would be lovely to see it. Definitely lovely to see it kind of play out on screen. And I think if it got taken up, she'd probably play Frankie. I think she'd make a really great Frankie. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm just excited to get any look in at all. Jackie
but honestly, come on, why not? So to return to the book, and I know we're not allowed to give anything away, because that's really important, but could you share with us maybe one aspect of the game, or one decision that needs to be made?
Ooh, let me think. Well, I think one I can maybe share something that was very interesting to research, um, which I hadn't heard of before, but it was geo profiling, where I think I can't remember the name of the guy who invented it, but it's like they have whole computer systems for this now, and this is where they can work out from the type of crime, the time, what type of person would most obviously profiling what type of person most likely fit that description. But now they can kind of judge where that person would live. So they can isolate areas, and that means they can put surveillance on those areas. So I know that mightn't sound massively groundbreaking, but it was massively interesting to me when I was researching it, how specific they can narrow that down. And there's something called distance decay factor, which is where the further out you are from the crime, how less likely you are. So for certain crimes, they might be able to judge, okay, this person most likely has a car, or this person's not working in the day, or so they can kind of narrow down that. So they use that in the book. I did a lot of research on that, and they do use that in the book. There is one of the detectives becomes quite expert on it. And the reason why I liked it was because, again, it kind of fed into that idea of Dublin City being a board game. And they could kind of map out, it was probably one of my favorite scenes to write, which is probably to the reader, they're probably reading over it going, oh, why is that a favorite scene? But it just kind of really clicked in with the idea that I had in my head to what the characters were doing on the page when Steve, he has the map up on their kind of case board, you know, on their wall. I think they call it the crazy wall in detective or in police departments. But they have the map of Dublin out, and he has put pins where all these various little crime scenes and clues that they've picked up for the board game. And he steps back and he says, he basically says, it has the look of a board game about it, with how they're kind of paced out. And I just quite liked writing that paragraph. It's only a little paragraph, but it's just a point as a writer. You're going, okay, I'm getting this premise on the page, so I quite like it. And there's this nice kind of crossover between the kind of fictional game and reality happening. So yeah, I can't even remember if I answered your question there.
Perfectly it does. It perfectly does, because that idea of, you know, I asked you, could you tell us something about the game or an aspect of it? And so, yeah, that idea of random. So I'm wondering, you know, when we're sort of like back to more of a reasonable way of being,
hopefully,
do you think you'll contact Dublin Tourist Board and say, can we have a murder game board walk
street tour
around around these places that are in my book?
Oh, I mean, that would be great, but maybe with less of the real victims at the center. But yeah, I mean, I haven't been back to Ireland now in quite some time. I normally try to get back at least once a year, so I definitely will be as soon as I can back there, and yeah, walking the streets of Dublin and looking for more inspiration.
So of those locations, you know, on the board there, is there a location that you've chosen, part of the, you know, part of the crime aside, that is important for you, that holds memories of the past, that you just thought, I need that in my story?
I mean, I loved Dublin. I worked there when I was a student along the quays. Just beautiful. The Dublin quays are really stunning, and you can walk right along quite far right along them. But I worked there for a solicitor's firm as a post girl. You know, there was little trolleys and delivering post around this huge firm. And God, that was just one of my favorite jobs. It was just brilliant, because you just kind of got on the move every half an hour, but also you got to see everything. But I just loved working in Dublin, just walking around, and the history is so layered. So I think all of it is I think it evokes memories of some sort to me. Henry Street, I think there was a scene in the murder box, significant scene in Henry Street, and that has big childhood memories for me. When we were kids, we'd save up our pocket money and we'd be taken to Dublin before Christmas to do our little bit of shopping. And Henry Street is just always remembered full of kind of fruit and flower sellers, and lots of bustle, lots of noise, and going to Arnott's, which was one of the big department stores down that street. Um, so yeah, when I was writing those scenes, I was kind of taking from my own memories of that kind of slight mayhem and crush of Henry Street. Um, and then there was a fun aspect in the novel as well, where I wanted this kind of crossover again between how in Ireland and very similar probably in the north in Scotland as well, stories take on a kind of reality of their own, even when you know deep down they're not true. You know, you're kind of repeating them so often, they kind of take on this kind of feeling of, well, that's part of the fabric of our history now, even though they're not technically true. And there's a scene where Frankie's walking across O'Connell Bridge in Dublin, and she stops to look at this plaque that had been inserted, and this is really there, so you can go and see this yourself. And it's of a guy called Father Pat Noyes, who apparently his carriage went into the Liffey in 1919, and it's a memorial plaque. Now that plaque had appeared on the bridge after the council had removed what was the control box to the Millennium Clock, which had been submerged in the Liffey at the time when we were kind of coming to a new millennium. And they left a little gap in the bridge. And a few months after, people began to comment that there's a plaque there, a memorial plaque, a brass plaque carved, looked very official. But it took them so long to kind of realize that this guy didn't exist, that it was a prank, that this was fake. And the Dubliners had gotten attached to it, that they objected to it being removed. And when the council did try to remove, the plaque reappeared again. So now it's there. As if it's real, that it's not real, but you know, so I quite enjoyed that kind of layering of, again, that how particularly in Ireland we love a story, how that story had there was a sense of belonging over it, even though it didn't happen. You know, it was like, well, no, we
part of our history. Oh, wait a minute,
yeah.
no, it isn't.
So I liked that, and so I put that into the book as well for that reason, because I thought it kind of, this is what's so great about Dublin. It's just so multifaceted when it comes to its history, that no matter what themes you're kind of looking for in your book, there's something in Dublin that will reflect what you're trying to write about. And just the kind of social variety and diversity in the city is, you know, from half a mile to half a mile can be completely different. So you get this lovely mix that you've, as a writer, I think it's really nice to yeah, it's a good setting for places like crime fiction, certainly. Yeah.
And again, it made me a little bit feel like a guilty pleasure, that idea of, you know, we're not able to travel freely and you know, I think care freely at the minute. And it was great. It was like, you can travel around Dublin. I'm sorry it's to do with somebody's, you know, possible demise, but I like the fact that, you know, getting to go around Dublin. So thank you for that. I've got a last question about the book, and I just wondered, because when the young woman goes missing, her friend has already reported this, yeah, and it seems that at that first reporting, nobody's bothered. Nobody seems to take her seriously. Were you want? I mean, for me, that made a massive statement. Were you wanting to make a statement like that?
Not necessarily. I think it's quite hard. I think because, you know, that some people do go missing and they don't want to be found, and that can happen. So I think that's quite tough for the police. But yeah, unfortunately, it's a sad state of affairs that when people go missing, that some people get a lot of attention and media attention. And that's the point with Frankie's that's what Frankie's having trouble with in the book, because Teddy Dolan, who is the celebrity, has had all the stops pulled out for him, no kind of expense spared. And then this other young woman goes missing, and it's like nobody, they don't even put a full-on report into the system. So So yeah, I think my books always touch on something like that within problems in society and that, and I think it's important to some degree to kind of reflect that. I mean, I enjoy reflecting that because it's just it gives add that reality to the books, that sense of reality. But also it just keeps the questions in that gray area all the time, which is obviously as a writer what you want to investigate and explore. You don't want your heroes to be pure heroes, and you don't want your villains to be pure villain. You want that kind of the reader to feel a little conflicted at times. Oops, my earpiece is fallen out. To feel a little conflicted at times. So, and that's what those elements of my novels do. And I've done it for almost all my books now. There's always some element of corruption or bad decisions by the police, and yeah.
It seems strange to say, but I think you do it so well. It's like you give us the questions, with the, do you really think that? And it's like, sorry, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. So 4 books, and and every success with this 4th book and all that might mean.
Thank you.
Is there more Frankie and Baz?
I would hope so. I'm writing another one. The one I'm writing at the moment is not a Frankie and Baz one.
Okay.
It's just a it's a thriller, but I'm not going to say anything more than that. But
yeah,
but I would hope, yeah, that we'll have Frankie and Baz return afterwards. Just have a little palate cleanser for this one, and because it's been 4 books basically on the year since I began. I think it's good to have a little change of pace to something else. And then hopefully back to Frankie and Baz afterwards. So, I mean, there's so much more to and kind of explore as a writer with the series, and yeah, and I do feel like with this, as you said, I do feel like this book is a gear change in lots of ways with regards to their relationship with the type of cases that they're looking at. So there's definitely lots more material to explore. So I hope to be back with them again next year.
Brilliant, brilliant. Olivia, it is an absolute joy and pleasure, all right, to do this. I would dearly love to hope that the 3rd time I get to talk to you, I would love for us to be able to do this in real life. I mean, this is wonderful. This is beautiful, and I, thank you for your time and for your writing and to be able to discuss this. But fingers crossed that in 2022, I would love to be able to invite you to Newcastle Noir and
I would love that. Newcastle is brilliant. Yeah.
So fingers crossed. But for now, all the very best with the murder box and everything that might come out of that. Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really, really lovely.
Pleasure. Bye for now.